You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Sit Down right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Delighted to be joined by a very special guest in this week's episode, the Hibs legend, Joelle Murray. Joelle, it's a pleasure to welcome you onto the show. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you, Scott. That was a very nice introduction. So yeah, very complimentary. I'll come on a lot more if that's the case. But yeah, thanks so much.
Brilliant. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Just busy with various things, all football related and orientated, but busy, but a good busy. I like to be busy, so yeah.
Definitely. What was it like, obviously, playing football during the past 18 months? Obviously, the Women's League started, start to stop and then get going last season. What was it like, playing with no crowd?
I mean, we don't get a large crowd anyway, so for us, I think we didn't really see the effects of that kind of no spectator element to that return to play. So it actually was okay and didn't really faze me nor the other players within the team. And I think we were all just kind of happy and delighted to get back playing in whatever capacity that meant.
Yeah, definitely. How excited are you to get back to normal for the season to start up again?
Yeah, we're really excited. We've had a good kind of pre-season and we recruited well in the off-season. We added strength and depth to the squad, which is great, and the new players have integrated very well. So we're looking forward to the league campaign start, and we're of course going through the kind of League Cup group stage at the moment, but we all can't wait for the league to start in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you get the job in the background at Hibs as well. What's that been like over the past couple of years?
It's been good, but it's been challenging. So the Girls Academy that I head up falls under the charitable arm of the club, the Community Foundation. So the finances aren't always there for the resources that I would like to kind of implement, which is a struggle, because I think what I can kind of bring to that role is that ability to be relatable. So I've been there and I've done that. I've kind of transitioned through the pathway to the first team. So I feel like I'm in a good position to know what players need and want, and it's frustrating at times when I can't provide that. But yeah, all in all, it's great. I mean, working in football, it's something that I've always wanted to do, and of course doing that with the club that I love and support is an added bonus.
Brilliant. Obviously, your early kind of memories in football, like when did you first get into football? And obviously you were a Hibs fan. Who were some of the kind of Hibs heroes when you were growing up?
So I got into football because my dad was and still is a massive Hibs fan. He played and then he went into management down east of Scotland. So I would always be at his training when I wasn't at my training. Similarly, I was at his games when I wasn't at my games. So my life was just consumed with football. So it was my dad that got me involved, and here I am, kind of 20 years later, from a Hibs perspective. But I've played ever since I was 5. So as I say, it's all I've ever known for kind of the majority of my life.
Yeah. Who were some of the kind of favourite players you had when you were young?
I liked Russell Latipi.
Right.
He was very creative on the ball. You never really knew what he was going to do. So I loved Latipi, Pat McGinley, Darren Jackson, kind of those types of players. But I just loved going to Easter Road. I always went with my little autograph book and in the hope that someone would sign it. So yeah, although the players that I've noted, I think Hibs have had a proud history of kind of having a lot of kind of creative and talented players, and I was quite fortunate to kind of grow up and watch them.
Brilliant. What were some of your kind of favourite memories of going to Easter Road? Is there a particular one that stands out?
Not really. I think the one that stands out is probably not from any football perspective, I always remember we were quite young, and my brother attended the game with us, with myself and my dad, and he was desperate for a pie at half time, and of course the flip seats. So anyway, he got his pie, stood in the queue for ages. I think my dad missed the start of the second half, and my brother came back, stood up, put his pie in the seat, and of course it ended up two rows behind us. So my dad wasn't best pleased, and needless to say, Richard wasn't back. So that's probably my the memory that kind of stands out, albeit not from anything that's happened on the pitch, but a nice memory nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely. So when you were growing up, like when you were kind of beginning to play football, was there many opportunities to get into football at that age?
Not from where I grew up. So I grew up in the Borders, and it was very much a kind of male and boys dominated sport. There was nothing for girls, and I think I was always seen as a novelty because I played with the boys. So I played mixed football up until I was 13, 14. So I was the only girl playing football, and as I say, I think people saw it as a bit of a novelty. But for me, I never saw myself as a female playing a boys' sport. I just saw myself as a footballer and someone who wanted to kind of progress and develop. And if that was against or with boys or girls, then so be it. So yeah, there was no opportunities down in the Borders, unfortunately. But I think that was probably a combination of location and also the time. I mean, back then there were very little opportunities anywhere. I don't think so. So yeah, I think a combination of both, to be fair.
Yeah. Obviously at school as well, what was your kind of ambitions leaving school?
So when I left school, I just wanted to play football. I had no aspirations to go into further education. I just wanted to play football and make money. I was part of the youth national teams, from U17s through U19s, 23s, and then A squads. So I was still at school when I was kind of part of those younger youth squads. So I just wanted to play football and as I say, make money. So I had no aspirations at all to kind of go into further education. And I think back then, because the women's game wasn't as kind of prominent, you often got people that weren't really educated and weren't aware the level that you were actually playing at. Like,
Yeah.
I was representing Scotland at a youth national level, and it was like people didn't fully appreciate that. So yeah, I just wanted to play football, make money along the way, and see where it would take me.
Yeah. What was your kind of early memories of playing in the Scotland youth teams?
I don't know. I think for me, I thought it was kind of an eye opener. To be honest, meeting different types of people and different types of players, and yeah, it was definitely an eye opener. From probably a ability and a characteristic perspective. I was very, very shy and quiet when I was younger, so I probably in that environment in the very early stages probably didn't speak unless I was asked a question. So I was being put into teams that were full of West-based players who have who are very proud and quite loud, and I was just kind of taken aback. So that's kind of my first experiences and memories of the youth national team. But yeah, very fond memories. Met so many different types of people and still keep in touch with them to this day. So yeah, kind of thankful for football for that.
Yeah, definitely. When did you first see that Hibs were looking at you to sign you?
So it wasn't actually, and I'm going to probably show my age here. So as I say, down in the Borders, there wasn't any opportunity for girls, and I think you could play with boys up until 13 or 14. So it was coming to that stage where I knew that if I wanted to continue playing football, I would have to transition into a girls only team. So my dad saw an advert in the pink paper for trials for Hibs under 17s up at Meadowbank in Edinburgh, and went along to that, and then ever since that one trial, I've been at the club.
And what was the kind of early memories, obviously, the trial? What kind of sticks in your head for that day?
Yeah, so from that day, it was a strange one because I think that was my first experience of a female only, a girls only environment. And I think for me, what stood me in good stead was the fact that I'd played with boys, and I always say to parents who ask me, should I integrate my daughter into a mixed environment, I would say yes, because I feel like it stood me in good stead especially from a physical perspective. So I felt like I was a lot kind of stronger and fitter and faster than others. So yeah, that's kind of my first impressions of that day.
Brilliant. Do you remember your first team debut for Hibs?
I don't. I mean, my memory is terrible. My memory is absolutely terrible. I remember my first training session, and I think it's probably because the trial was for the U17s, and I don't know where the miscommunication came, but I ended up turning up to the first team squad training, started training. I think the coaches were thinking, who's this? And I'm thinking I'm at the U17s and maybe thinking, well, they're a bit old old looking for U17s anyway. Started training, and I think they realised that I kind of fitted in. So yeah, my first session was actually with the women's first team opposed to the U17s, but I quickly transitioned back to U17s and kind of bided my time.
And what was the youth days like at Hibs?
Oh, it was fantastic. Again, just meeting and mixing with loads of different people. We were probably the team to beat. It was always us in Cumbernauld Cosmos. I remember Sue Lapp and Crichton and Jenny Condy and a few others. It was always a battle. It was always a competitive game, but we were always, as I say, the team to beat, and we were so successful. We had a proud history of bringing through a lot of talent and transition them to the first team. And of course, back then there was never that full pathway element. It was basically Hibs U17s and in the first team, whereby now you've got your U11s, 13s, 15s, 17s, and 19s. So yeah, that team was fantastic. We would go abroad for many tournaments, and as I say, met people that I still keep in touch with now, which is good.
And in your early days at Hibs, who was kind of coming through at the same time as you?
So for me, I don't think there's anyone from the under 17s that transitioned with me and kind of stayed or was a mainstay in the first team. There were players that transitioned, but for one reason or another, they kind of fell away. So I think I'm probably the main one from kind of my era that made the transition into first team and stayed there. Of course, there's been others since, but from my era and that group, there's certainly no one there at the moment.
Yeah, who were the kind of good mentors as well? That kind of were good coaches at the start of your career.
In terms of coaches or players or
coaches, well, kind of coaches. Who was the kind of good coaches that were at Hibs at the time?
So Hibs were formed by two brothers, Pauline and Johnston, and they were great. I mean, it was a hard and fast learning curve. They didn't pander to us because we were female. They very much treated us like footballers, and as I say, it was a very hard and fast way of learning. And I think again that stood me in good stead going forward, because I think it made me realise that I need to really work for this, and I need to really show them what I can do to ensure that I can get some game time. So Ian and Paul were fantastic, but I've had many coaches, especially at the first team, that I'd probably say are up there with the best coaches that I've kind of worked under.
Yeah, definitely. You won 2 titles in that kind of first few years of your career at Hibs. Like, how successful a period was that? Like, what were your kind of memories of the 2 titles?
I always remember, again, I was very, very young. I always remember Stacey Cook and Mandy Burns and all them. They used to call me Wee Ian, and I was always very, very kind of, I don't know if I was naive, but we came up against I think it was Kilmarnock was our main threat or our main challengers in the early years, and it was always one of those ones where you weren't really sure which way it would go, and maybe cup finals. Celtic were pretty decent at that time, so those 2 titles were great. I think we actually won one of them at McDermott Park, and it was a team littered with Women's A Squad internationals, Shelley Kerr, Stacey Cook, Mandy Burns. So yeah, winning those titles was something that I remember fondly, because I done it with players of a quality and a calibre, but I didn't just do it and watch it happen. I was part of that, and part of that at a young age, which I'm proud of.
Brilliant. You made your Scotland debut in 2007. When did you first get the call that you'd be capped for Scotland?
Again, it was strange. It was a strange one because the format's now changed. We used to have, it was like the pathway towards the A squad was essentially regional squads, elite squads, and then you would have trials. So the trials were always daunting. You would always attend, and you would look when you got the letter through the door. You would always look at who could potentially be your kind of competition in your position, and yeah, they were always pretty daunting. And thinking back now, imagine having trials to get into Steve Clarke's A squad. Like, it's just crazy that was even a thing. But I think when I first got the call, I don't know if there was injuries, or maybe I'm doing myself an injustice or a disservice, but maybe I merited it. But it was under my God, the names just went out my head. But the coach was an extremely strict, Vera Pau, extremely strict coach, and I thought I'd never ever get into Vera's squad. And as I say, the call came and I was included, and yeah, it was exciting and nerve-wracking all at the same time.
What was the kind of memories of your debut?
Again, I can't really remember much apart from being quite kind of overwhelmed. I couldn't quite believe it. I think you always dream of that moment as a kid growing up when you kind of have aspirations to play football. So it was pretty overwhelming, and I think I just kind of tried to settle the nerves and enjoy the moment and kind of play as best I could.
Brilliant. You became a consistent player in the Hibs team and obviously played in Europe. What were your kind of summer memories of playing in kind of European competitions for Hibs?
The European competitions were incredible. I mean, the European games give you the opportunity to play against a different entity. I mean, in the domestic leagues, you play the same teams week in, week out, so you get to know their players, you're familiar with playing styles. So the European games were a completely different entity. You were challenging yourself against better players, against fitter, faster players, and I guess at times it was an eye-opener because I probably thought I was at the top of my game and we were quite good, but then you were quickly brought crashing back down to earth after a defeat to one of these teams. But again, an experience that I loved, and again doing it with my teammates and also friends. And I'm fortunate to have had many experiences and kind of forays into the European kind of tournaments and the Champions Leagues and stuff.
And who've been kind of some of the best teams you've played against?
The one that I'll always say is the Bayern Munich game. We played them home and away. I think it was last 32. We played them at Easter Road under the lights on I think it was a Wednesday night, and that was absolutely unbelievable. I think at that time it was the biggest crowd for a women's or a Scottish women's football match. Sorry, and it was just the whole occasion was absolutely surreal. And although we got beat that night, it was just something that I'll be up there. We were one of the best games that I've ever kind of played in, just because the name Bayern Munich, it's a worldwide name. The occasion, the players you were playing against, kind of World Cup winners, Olympic gold medalists. So yeah, everything about that night and about that game is something that I'll always look back on fondly and probably mention as one of the best games I've ever played in.
Is there any kind of time that any other clubs have tried to take you away from Hibs?
There's been a few over the years, if I'm being honest, but for me, money's never ever been my driver. It's never been anything that would be a deciding factor in staying or going. I think because I support the club and I have such an affirmation with the club, it's always been hard. Don't get me wrong, it was never ever an instant no. I mean, somewhere, but there were times that I did fully consider the offer, but at the end of the day, the decision was to stay at the club. And whether that was a decision based on my head or heart, it was one that I made, and certainly ones that I don't look back on and don't regret.
And who were some of the best teammates you had in your first few years at Hibs?
I just think the players that I've previously mentioned there, Stacey Cook, Mandy Barnes, Debbie McQuinney, Susie Robertson, Laura Kennedy, all older players, experienced players, A squad players who really took the time to kind of guide me and support me and give me advice. So I know that often is hard to come by, but they really did kind of take me under their wing and support me, and I'm really thankful for that, and I think that's kind of shaped me and made me into the player and person that I am today.
Yeah, definitely. Do you remember your Scotland goal?
I do actually. It was a tap in at the front post at McDermott Park. I don't know what I was doing that high up the pitch, to be fair. I think it was a Diana Barry kind of cut back. She drove to the byline, cut it back, and I found myself at the front post and slotted it into the back of the net. And I think if I'm right, I got taken off not long after. So I was quite happy to come off because I was satisfied with my goal that day. But yeah, that's my one and only goal, and I'll certainly take that even if I don't get any more.
Brilliant. Have you seen the progression in the club, in Hibs particularly, since you started to now? How much has the club changed in that kind of period of time?
Massively. I think when I first started, although we kind of worked under the guise of Hibs, we were never ever affiliated or integrated. I don't even think we got the kit. I don't know where we got the kit, but I mean it was massive. I don't know if it was handed down from the men's first team or not, but from those early days, as I say, we were very much our own entity, although we went under the guise of Hibs. But the progression and the development and the integration from then to now has been unbelievable. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here saying it's perfect and we are where we want to be, because we're not. There's a lot that still can be done and hopefully will be done. But from where it's kind of come from to now, it's certainly something that I'm satisfied with, and hopefully we can continue along that kind of upward trajectory and become fully integrated with the club.
Yeah, definitely. What were your memories of winning the Scottish Cup in 2010?
Yeah, it was unreal. I mean, as a Scottish footballer, that's kind of the ultimate dream and goal is the Scottish Cup. It's a prestigious cup, and to be able to kind of secure that then so young was definitely something that I enjoyed. And I don't know if we were the kind of underdogs that day, but I think that made it even sweeter. But yeah, it's certainly the first of a few that I've managed to secure, and certainly all cups I'm very, very proud of achieving.
And obviously, it's like the past few years, Glasgow City have kind of dominated the league. Has it been hard to kind of keep up with them? Obviously, kind of Hibs kind of dominated before that. Has it been hard to see like Glasgow City dominate the way they have in the past few years?
It definitely has. I think the times have changed, because I think we went on a similar run prior to Glasgow City's dominance. So to see that flip and flip so dramatically, it was hard to take. And I was always asked, because we went through a spell of Glasgow City would win the league and we would win the cups. We went through, I think, 3 seasons winning the double, and I was always asked, why can't you beat them in the league, but you can beat them in the cups? And I don't know if it's a different mindset. The cup's been a one-off game, whereby the league you pick up 3 points or you drop 3 points, and it has an implication longer term. I honestly don't know, but it certainly pains me to see them pick up league title after league title. So it's something that I definitely want to kind of change before I retire. But yeah, I mean, all credit to Glasgow City. I think what they do on and off the pitch is superb, especially because they're not affiliated to an actual club as such. So all credit to them what they've achieved on and off the pitch. But certainly it doesn't make it any easier to kind of take or swallow. So hopefully before I retire, I can change that.
And obviously, you won 3 Scottish Cups and 4 League Cups in a row. Like, what was it about the cups you just felt you had an edge at that time?
It's strange. Like, it's so strange, because, as I say, we were asked it so many times, and I honestly don't know if there was more adrenaline in those cup games or a bigger desire, which if there was, I would question that, because for me, you should have the same kind of want and desire going into any game. So I honestly can't put my finger on it, but that's the way it happened, and it happened that way for 7 kind of cup competitions in a row before they overturned that. So it certainly was a strange one, because we were often miles off it in the league, but in the cup games we were amazing. So it was so strange, but I certainly can't put my finger on it, whether it's a mindset shift or a pressure or whatnot. But yeah, it was a strange one.
And what's been some of your favourite memories and stories for your time at Hibs?
Oh, so many. I've been, as I say, I've been at the club now for 20 years, so there's been so many characters that I've played with, kind of previously and now, and so many stories that I probably can't tell, to be fair. But yeah, just sharing those kind of cup wins and the European adventures with not only teammates but friends. I think we've got a fantastic kind of environment at Hibs, that there's absolutely no cliques. Everyone gets on with everyone. We have that unity on and off the pitch, and although when things aren't going well, maybe on the pitch or in the background, as a group of players, we all stick together and we've got each other's back. So I think for me, that's the main thing, and something that I'm very, very proud of and proud to be a part of.
And what do you think the next step for the club is at the moment? Like, obviously, is it full time the kind of logical next step?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think at the moment the integration is going well. We're now training down at the training centre, which is a fantastic facility. I don't know if you've been down there, but we're training down there all the time. But for me, I think we obviously announced we're playing our games out at Livingston, which isn't ideal. I think for me, the next step is to build a home and a base in Edinburgh, somewhere that we can kind of brand up, somewhere that we can call our home, whether that be developing the training centre and putting something similar to Rangers, to what Rangers have done at their training centre. But definitely for me, that's the next steps, and kind of further integrating into the club, because although we as a women's team have moved away from the charitable arm of the club, we still are essentially a separate entity. So I think those two things are, or would be, my priorities: kind of creating a home and a base, and also kind of integrating fully into the club.
Yeah. How did the academy manager job come about?
It was just one that came out of the blue, actually. So I was working with an insurance company, Royal London in Edinburgh, and the chief exec of the foundation called me in for a meeting, and I was oblivious, actually. I thought he was just wanting to meet to get an update on the women's team, obviously with me being the captain, and just out of the blue he'd offered me this role that wasn't previously a role. It was a role that he'd created and kind of earmarked me to head up. And when he offered me it, it was a no-brainer, to be honest. I actually couldn't believe it, but yeah, it was something that completely came out of the blue, but something that after taking the opportunity certainly haven't looked back. So now, I think now 4 years in the position and absolutely loving it.
And what's the next steps for that? Is it just to grow and grow and grow as much as possible?
Yeah, again, just grow as much as possible. And for me, I want Hibs Girls Academy to kind of be known as the best kind of youth academy, youth elite academy in Scotland. So continue to grow. I want us to have that reputation whereby players want to come to us because of what we're doing from a player development perspective. So yeah, that's what I want, and just to continue to be successful year on year.
Yeah, definitely. Your Scotland key as well. Who were some of the best players you played with in your time with the national team?
Played with, probably in the earlier stages, Julie Fleeton. Obviously, me being a centre half, Julie being a striker, we would often mark each other in train, and absolutely a handful. Couldn't get the ball off her, and when she had the ball, it often ended up in the back of the net, whether it be top corner, bottom corner, side net. And so definitely Julie, and then latterly probably Kim Little and Caroline Weir. I mean, you just during training, you just kind of stand and watch in awe of what they were doing. It was just absolutely effortless. I mean, Caroline's left foot is an actual wand, and Kim's kind of ability to retain the ball under pressure is unreal. So those three players are probably the three players that I would say are the best that I've played with at that level.
Brilliant. Euro 2017, what was it like to qualify for that?
Incredible. I always remember the day out in Iceland that it was kind of confirmed that we were going, and obviously it being the first time the Scottish women's team have qualified for a finals tournament, it was a historical moment. So we were absolutely delighted that we'd be able to kind of do that and represent the country on the biggest stage.
And what was your memories of that experience of playing in that tournament?
Unreal. It was something that none of us had kind of been exposed to previously, and going there, you couldn't even kind of preempt what was going to happen because of that reason. And I think every day you'd be like you were kind of blown away, like, whoa, like I didn't know that was going to happen. And it was just unreal and unbelievable to kind of be part of that historical squad.
And then obviously 2 years after that, the World Cup in France. Is that kind of the best experience you've had in your career?
Oh, unreal, without a doubt. I think we thought the Euros was special, and then you go to the World Cup and it's just another kind of a level, 2-3 levels up from that, in terms of everything from on the pitch and off the pitch, preparation, just everything. So yeah, that was crazy. And I think to do that on the back of the Euros qualification was special, because the Euros set the bar and it gave us an indication of what to expect at a finals tournament. And we know we wanted that. We know that was a standard, and nothing less was acceptable. So to then qualify for the World Cup 2 years later was remarkable, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You played 48 times for Scotland. How proud are you of your international career?
Yeah, massively proud. Again, when I was growing up as a young girl, I didn't think I'd play for Hibs. I didn't think I'd represent my country. So to do both and to get 48 caps along the way is something I'm massively proud of. I think that's the absolute pinnacle of any footballer's career, is representing their country, and I'm so fortunate to have pulled on that strip and sang that national anthem 48 times.
Brilliant. What's your plans after football? Is it the plan just to play for as long as you possibly can, and what's the kind of next steps after that?
I think so. I think for me, I don't want to be one of those players that your teammates kind of look at and think, is she still playing? So I think for me, I don't want to say I'm going to play another year or another 2 years. I think my body will let me know when the time comes to kind of retire. So when I do, I'd like to stay in the game in some capacity. I'm currently going through my A licence. I'm doing an applied football management course with the kind of PFA and Napier University. I've got a keen interest in scouting. I've been doing a few courses with the PFSA. So for me, there's no kind of immediate way I want to go. I think it's important that I'm kind of building my toolbox at the moment so that I've got kind of all of those options that I can potentially utilise, and of course the media and the broadcasting stuff. I've absolutely loved doing that. The Hibs TV stuff that I done last season, sports scene as well. It's definitely something that I'd be keen to kind of continue with and kind of advance.
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned there about getting into management, is that thought kind of cross your mind, or like what you would kind of like to do if that stage come up?
Yeah, I think so, and I don't think I would be. I wouldn't say I just want to work in the women's game, because I'd be open to working in the men's game. I think I've been quite fortunate to be down at the training centre. Jack Ross kind of was kind enough to kind of have me down there to kind of take in a session, and certainly that's an environment that I think I could kind of handle myself in. So it's definitely something that I've got a keen appetite for. And of course, before Dean came in, I had that kind of 2 to 3 week spell of being a player manager. So it kind of gave me an insight as to what to expect, and certainly whet the appetite for what could potentially come.
Brilliant. How much has the women's game changed since you started, and what are the kind of next steps to make it go even further?
It's massively changed since I started. I think just everything, the structure, the infrastructure around the game has changed. The resources that are now available to players. I mean, when I first started, training was on a Tuesday and a Thursday. If you made one night, you'd be fine and you'd be eligible to play for the Sunday. Whereas now that certainly wouldn't be acceptable. You've of course got your gym sessions, your strength and conditioning sessions, out with the pitch sessions. So in terms of structure and infrastructure and resources, it's massively developed. And I think for me, the next step is kind of ensuring that full league kind of professional status, because at the moment there's such a variety of teams, probably in the SWPL even, that are kind of amateur, part-time, semi-pro, full-time. So for me, I think having that consistency across the board of full-time clubs, allowing players to kind of train and play as a full-time athlete is for me the next step. And I don't think we'll get there in my playing career, but hopefully I can be part of that in some capacity going forward.
Yeah. What's the kind of hopes and expectations for the upcoming season for Hibs?
I mean, I think it's always cliche, want to win the league, want to win the cups, but for us, it was such a transitional season last season, out with COVID. So for us, we want to certainly better last season. We finished outside the top two for the first time in, I can't remember how long. So that certainly wasn't acceptable. We want to get back in the top two and get back to kind of taking points off the so-called big three that were mentioned last season. So definitely we need to be realistic and appreciate where we are and where we've come from, but we also appreciate the quality that we've got within the squad, especially after the new additions. So yeah, I definitely want to be challenging and competing at the top and taking points off the top three, opposed to kind of coming away with a narrow 1-0 or 2-1 defeat.
Yeah, definitely. Are you all right closing some quick fire questions?
Yeah, of course.
Brilliant. Who would you say your whole career was the best player you ever played with?
Played with, I would say Kim Little. Played with her at Hibs, played with her at Scotland, so yeah, Kim Little.
Brilliant. Best player you've ever played against?
Vivian Medema. She was a striker when we played Bayern Munich, so she was a handful.
Brilliant. Favourite away ground or stadium you've played at?
Favourite away ground or stadium? I mean, the stadium when we played Jamaica at Hampden just before the World Cup, that was incredible. I think there was 17,500 fans there, and the sun was shining. So I'd probably say that game.
Brilliant. Favourite film?
Favourite film? I always get slated for this, but favourite film is The Bodyguard. I absolutely love it. Could watch on repeat.
Brilliant. Favourite football in memory?
Football in memory is that Bayern Munich game. Absolutely that Bayern Munich game.
Brilliant. Best friend in football?
Hayley Lauder and Joe Love. Two Glasgow City players, so aye, people might raise their eyebrows at that, but definitely Hayley and Joe.
Brilliant. Final question, the best manager you've played under?
Best manager I've played under is, I mean, there's been a few, but definitely I think Chris Roberts. So personable, kind of so involved in individual player development. I would definitely say Chris Roberts, who's now, of course, assistant at Everton Women's Football Club.
Brilliant. Joelle, it's been an absolute pleasure to you on the show. Thank you very much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you.